Cooper, did you know that I'm good at Screamo?
Are you?
Yeah,
Let's
watch.
Watch this.
Oh.
You got to do the crab walk with like your bar strap hanging down by your ankles. Oh, dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun.
Need to like jump off a speaker and break my ankle and bite the head off of a bat or something. That's art.
That's Ozzy.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's a mix between that would be like if like Iggy Pop and Ozzy had a baby.
Yeah, right. Good morning, friends. Sloshers in the chat. Glonk is here. Mr. Westford, Melon, Xavier, 2-Bit Podcast. We got the crew in the house this morning.
So
good.
I stayed up way too late last night, smoking cigars and drinking White Claw with Xavier. And I think I went to bed at like 1:30, and then I had to go to work at 6.
Oh, geez.
Because my company is run by communists or something, and they're open the day after the 4th of July. Despite the fact that none of my customers were going to be open. So I show up to work, and I stand around for about an hour, and then I went home. So, thanks, guys.
You still get paid for 8, though, right?
Oh, I'm still on the clock, man.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
If you're going to make me come in, I'm going to milk it.
Plundering Globocorp. Well, it's good to see you guys this morning.
Roman took a nap.
Good for you. Good for you. I slept in because I was up late between... So I've been talking about how the earthing mat has just totally... like, I haven't had a really bad headache ever since I started using it, and I shouldn't have put that out into the universe because yesterday I got absolutely destroyed. I was laid out. The last, like, hour of the show yesterday, I was... like alternately like getting dizzy and feeling nauseated. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have to am I just going to puke on camera or am I going to have to just end the show real quick? I was planning that out a few times, but made it through and then just died for the rest of the day. And, yeah, feeling a little bit better today, but now I feel like every time I have a day like that, the next day I'm just super hungover and foggy brained. And
maybe you like the previous 6 headaches that you should have had, you just got hit all at the same time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I will say that based on my past history with these, I probably wouldn't have made it through the show yesterday because it would kind of surge and then it would fall back and then it would surge up and then it would fall back. And usually it would just surge up and just stay there. But the fact it kept kind of falling back a little bit made it doable. Well, welcome to the ASTROLABE. It is the day after the most important day of the year.
That's
4th
right.
of July.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, yes. The posting yesterday was just next level. Everywhere I went on Twitter, it was just egregious, over the top, just absolute America posting. I love it. I want to see that every single day. We need that. We need to have that every single day so that when the 4th of July comes around, we can be even more over the top. We are reclaiming the 4th of July as not just a national holiday, but an international holiday. We have an international town square. And those of you...
the whole world needs to shut down for us.
That's right. You are going to be confronted with over-the-top, brash, brazen, hardcore American nationalism, patriotism. It's all going to be mullets and bald eagles and cheap beer.
Mustaches.
Yeah. That's right. Mr. Westford says, thanks for getting me hype about America, Matt. I had no plans for the 4th, but thanks to you, I drank a whole 6-pack of beer and felt very American.
Hell yeah.
Mission accomplished. Xavier, $1 US. Thank you for that, Xavier. Thank you for giving yourself like 60 cents.
So, yeah, Xavier and I smoked cigars and drank a bunch of White Claw and went to McDonald's, and that's how we celebrated the 4th. Very American.
That's about as American as you can get.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of American, do us a favor if you're coming in, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We do the ASTROLABE every Monday through Friday, typically about 10:30 in the morning. Today, I'm dragging ass, and I had a hard time finding stories until like the last 10 minutes.
Matt, have you tried locking in?
Just gotta lock in, man. I just gotta lock in. Oh man. Right at the last 10 minutes before I was ready to go live, I added like 4 more things to the Astrolabe bookmarks folder. So I thought we were going to have a short show. Probably not. But it can't go too long because after we finish the show, I've got to go wash my hair. And washing my hair is an absolute ordeal. I've got to wash it. I've got to brush it out. I've got to get it all sleek and silky because I'm going to have my first haircut in 5 years this afternoon. I'm going to be taking off probably, I think it's like 18 inches long or something like that. So I'm going to be taking off probably 6 or 8 inches and then getting rid of all the sides because I'm really tired of having to deal with them. I just want it just clean, but then I'm going to look like a Nordic warlord. That's the goal.
Can you all the clippings? Can you like mail them to me so I can glue them on?
Yeah,
I miss my long hair.
Yeah. Give you a nice curly mullet.
Yeah, right. And then
Paste it on
a Jew mullet.
Yeah, there's lots of curls, so you could just get some of the curls in front of your ears.
Well, because like, so I have perfectly straight hair. It's really annoying. Back in high school, the ladies used to accuse me because this was back in like mid 2000s when like girls straightening their hair was the big thing.
Oh yeah.
And I used to get accused of straightening my hair, and I'm like, nah. And they're all jealous of me. I'm like, you don't want to be jealous of this. You don't understand. This shit's annoying. You can't do anything with it. It just gets in the way.
Yeah, it's funny. It was the exact opposite for me. Like, I have this natural like curly Jew fro, and especially when I was younger, I spent so much time out in the sun with my shirt off, so I was always really tan. So people would think I was like Italian or Greek, and I'm like, no, like look under my arms. I'm about as white as you can get. And the girls would be like, "Oh, your hair is just so curly. How do you get your hair to be that curly?" And I was like, I don't know, like sleep, wake up in the morning.
Yeah, right.
It's just and to me, it's like this gigantic rat's nest of like I have to actively work to not wind up with dreads because they will naturally turn into dreads if I'm not careful. Anyways, all right, so I can't believe I haven't shared this. Maybe I did share it and I forgot, but I think Cooper would know, and he reminded me that I need to share this. This is the best. This is the single best video you're ever going to see. Honestly,
this is the apotheosis of schizo edits. It's so good.
Oh man,
this is right-wing art.
Yes. Really, we could just play this and end the show, and it would probably be the best Astrolabe ever. We would never be able to top it. This is why Jared Taylor is banned from Twitter.
Listen up, man. This is your Uncle Jared. You think you're fit? You think you got the right stuff? Try to beat this. Arms all the way out. Anything short is cheating.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Keep working on it. Maybe by the time you're my age, maybe you'll be fit too.
Oh my God. Oh.
That was really loud, and the fact that it was so loud and I wasn't expecting that made it even funnier. Blew out my headphones.
That's like, to truly appreciate that, you have to have existed in such a small little slice of the internet in just like a specific period of time.
Right.
To really, truly appreciate everything that went into that. Hyperborean mode activated. Cooper and I were talking about this before, and I was like, I see something like that, and I'm like reverse engineering the creative process. Like, how did a human mind conceive of this idea? Like, they saw this video of Jared Taylor, and they were like, I know what I'm going to do with that. And they added in all of these edits. The Oppenheimer quote is just to pull that from the ether and be like, this is the thing that this video needs right here. Absolute kino.
So I'm the opposite. Like, I don't have to reverse engineer. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, I got it. That's the kind of shit that I would come up with.
Yeah. This is Cooper's the art hoe. You should see the stuff that he's been coming up with. He's been giving me little teases of the alembic that he's preparing, and similar vibe, but with its own unique Cooper spin on it. It's very good. I can't wait till you guys can see it.
Don't set the bar too high, okay?
Let's keep
expectations low.
What we need to do is get expectations really, really super high, and then you just release like a mouse taking a shit and squeaking or something, and that's all it is. Fitness really is white supremacy. Mr. Westford says audio keeps cutting out for me. It might be the signal of where I'm at, though. I'm not seeing anybody else saying anything, so we'll keep an eye on it. What's up, Well Emmanuel? Thank you for dropping in. I'm sorry that Global Corp is intruding upon your YouTube time. Okay.
I am plundering Global Corp right now. I'm getting paid to do this, guys. I'm on the clock.
Speaking of aristocracy, this is the aristocratic morning routine. More White Boy Summer content.
Yes, hello, welcome to my morning routine. Sparkling water, salt and lemon. The salt is sal de Guérande from the marshes of Bretagne. Good for the kidneys or liver or something. Then I'll juggle some oranges while standing on one leg to increase proprioception and hand-eye coordination, before I cut and squeeze the oranges to kickstart my metabolism. I celebrate with a behind the back between the legs reverse dunk. Shortly afterwards I'll listen to some choice quotes by influential fascist thinkers from the early 20th century. Followed on by a handstand walk. The blood to my brain increases my ability to ponder on the tantric alchemical ritual of amour and the holy grail of immortality. I'll then eat a single strawberry, take some supplements, coffee, raw cream and butter, and walk down to the water. I take my health seriously, so I like to find an elevated position to perform my daily ball slapping. I'll finish my morning with something mineral dense like sea moss gel and raw honey. I'll wear my wizard cloak for 10 plus divination while performing an assortment of charms and incantations. There you go, I hope you enjoyed my average morning.
I really want to know who the person was who did the voiceover, because I absolutely cannot associate the voice with the dude.
This guy, he kind of reminds me, I'm getting Jeremy Fragrance vibes.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I've seen him. I don't really know his deal. I've just seen him around a few times. And
oh, dude, he's the world's greatest fragrance influencer.
Was he the one there was a video a while back of him talking about this certain fragrance and how it brings back memories, and then started talking about like awkwardly masturbating somewhere or something?
Probably. He's awesome. He's so over the top. He wears this like skin tight white suit all the time. He's always breaking shit in his apartment. And he's an unapologetic Christian. He's like this German Christian nationalist who's like really into perfume.
Based,
he's
actually.
Awesome. He's really awesome.
I love. I used to have when I was in college. I think I'm like a poor college kid, but I just collected colognes. So I had like 25 or 30 different colognes like crammed into my dorm room with my sink, and the whole back of the sink was all just covered in different colognes. But since then, I've discovered how toxic all these different fragrances and stuff are. That they're secretly trying to steal my tea. So I had to move on from my fragrance life, but I miss it. Okay. This is we're all going to hell. We just need to embrace it.
I brought Kit Kats. Go. Yeah. Meow. I did.
Meow.
I got a hot shot.
How about this too?
Yeah, have you?
Just like 2 pieces.
I brought almond joy. Go over there. Okay.
What gas relief? Just want to get this done.
Okay, thank you.
I brought hot tamales.
White Boy Summer.
Okay.
I brought Kool-Aid pack.
You're not ready for this.
Oh.
Oh, man.
You know how much fun it would be to hang out with them?
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah, you do.
The other day we go to see fireworks, and we're parking in the parking lot and stuff like that. And I'm telling my wife, like, okay, why don't you back in, because this place is gonna be a nightmare trying to get out of here. So back in so we can just pull right out, whatever. And then she stops for a second, like getting ready to back up, and then she stops there for a second, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's blocking the driveway. What are you doing here? My mistake for letting you drive. And then she's like, well, look in the mirror, and there's a sweet boy walking behind us. And I turn around, and there's like a family walking through. One's in a wheelchair, and there's a kid walking by, stimming. And I'm like, I've never heard that before, like sweet boy. I'm like, oh, that's my new euphemism.
Sweet boy. Oh man, that's funny because there's there's something about autism and the gut, like having weird gut issues. Most autistic people will have like the worst poop or like just absolutely wretched gas, and it has something to do with like having like perforated gut, and then they have like issues with gluten and all sorts of things like that. But something with it promotes the growth of yeast infections, I guess, is the or like yeast infestations, which makes them crave sugar. So they have there's like a really, I don't think it's necessarily in tension with this video, but there's like a meta thing going on here where you've got all these sweet boys who are with all the candy and the marshmallows and everything. Yeah, leaky gut syndrome.
Yeah, man, my brother. So I've got several siblings on the spectrum, and the goofiest one, I remember he had the weirdest diet ever, man. It'd be like popcorn and mac and cheese and candy. Like that's like all he ate.
They love any type of breaded thing.
Bread, yeah.
Yep.
Tons of bread.
Amy says, extremely ironic with you Peters and your sugar consumption, lack of self-awareness. Yes.
Autistic people are known for their, self-awareness.
And there's absolutely Petism, the Peters is like the perfect intersection of autism and schizophrenia.
Oh yeah.
Like
plutonium capsules, man.
Yeah, getting deeply autistic about and supplementing with plutonium capsules.
Guys, my teeth is falling out. Should I stop?
The skin sloughed off my fingers as I typed this. I think it's working.
I got really, really warm while typing this. Pro-metabolic, right? My metabolism's really revving up. I ate 6,000 calories worth of ice cream today.
I've been in a 250-degree sauna for 6 hours, and my eyes are crossing spontaneously. Does that mean it's working?
Am I ascending to a new level of consciousness? Fucking loony bin, man.
Of course, this is all said with great love and affection. We love our Peters. Yeah, we do. Speaking of autism, one of the coolest videos going around yesterday. Mark Zuckerberg, man, this
the robot.
Yeah, what's the opposite of a heel in wrestling? Is it the
heel to my kayfabe?
Well, yeah, you have like you can like turn heel, but then what's the opposite of turning heel? What's like
Jason, help us out.
Yeah, turning face, turning hero. I don't know. Anyways, whatever that is, that's what's happened with Mark Zuckerberg.
Man, isn't it insane how like the most insufferable shitlib can do one thing and completely redeem themselves in your eyes?
I was going to say, I am a simple man. All I require is that you post a video of yourself like this. Just this, everything. The tux,
like,
the wakeboard, the beer, the American flag. Just and if you're like known for being a really awkward, dorky dweeb, and you do this, I don't care. You could believe and pay for anything else in the world, and you're my friend.
yeah, it's like Maddie Healy.
Uh huh.
The most insufferable shitlib on the planet. And then he said, "Hey, you guys should start a band called Girl or what did he say, Girl Retard or something?" And just lit the internet on fire. And then he deleted his Twitter account and said, "Fuck you all." Like, it was so good. That I don't care what your politics are. Like you're good in my book. You're one of my guys.
Someone had said this. Everyone was tweeting this video. There was a bunch of funny comments with it. Greg says, "I hate to admit it, but Mark Zuckerberg has swagger." Whole Mars catalog says, "Everyone is praising Mark for this video, but personally, I still think he zucks." Someone else said that the PR team responsible for rehabilitating Mark Zuckerberg's image is just like putting out banger after banger. Elon apparently is not impressed. He says, "May he continue to have fun in his yachts. I prefer to work."
Oh, jeez.
Elon Musk has never been lamer.
Yeah. Elon.
Come on, Elon. So we mentioned the other day about Trump not posting about everything that's going on. But of course, 4th of July, Trump has to make a post. And so he posted. Have you seen this yet, Cooper?
Maybe.
Jack Posobiec posted, "The undisputed champion.
Oh, yeah, I did see this.
Happy 4th of July to all, including to our highly incapable president who uses prosecutors to go after his political opponent." I love the randomly capitalized words. It's like
anytime there's a noun, it's like capitalized.
Yeah, it's like German. Maybe this is his German roots. Who choked like a dog during the debate, but tried to pretend it was international travel. Only 12 days rest. And when that gig was up, he blamed it on a cold. Therefore, why would anyone say he's cognitively challenged? Also, respects to our potentially new Democrat challenger, Laughing Kamala Harris. Laughing. I don't know. I give it a 7 out of 10. It's passable, but it's not.
Not his best. Not his best work.
Yeah, it's not. What was it? Crooked Hillary or Sleepy Joe, or what was the one with Low Energy Jeb? That was the
best one.
Just 12 out of 10. Absolute instant kill shot.
Oh, dude, he ruined his political career just like with a nickname.
Especially because and then Jeb has the "please clap" clip that comes out shortly after that. Please clap. You could just tell this guy does not want to be involved in this. He thought it was going to be a cakewalk, and it's not. Hey, no, he wants nothing to do with it.
You listen to me now. Do you ever see that clip?
Yeah, right.
He gets really angry. I'm talking.
Trump's like, shh, on stage. Laughing Kamala Harris. She did poorly in the Democrat nominating process, starting out at number 2 and ending up defeated and dropping out, even before getting to Iowa. But that doesn't mean she's not a highly talented politician. Just ask her mentor, the great Willie Brown of San Francisco. If you know anything about that background, we're going to talk about it here in just a minute. But, Trump's alluding to more than just a mentor. Someone else that I have to compliment is a deranged Biden prosecutor named Jack Smith, who has become a legend in his own mind for all of those cases he has lost. The corrupt prosecutors are working hard for Crooked Joe, but it will never be enough. Make America great again. I do think it's interesting that he drops a Crooked Joe here. He's no longer Sleepy Joe. He's now Crooked Joe. I kind of think Sleepy Joe is probably better. I don't know if Trump's off his game, but perhaps he has an angle with Crooked Joe.
Sleepy Joe, I think, was intentional because it rhymes with creepy. And that was around the same time all those videos were coming out of him, like, smelling people and shit.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Will says should have been cackling calamity. I think that would be a little too on the nose. But I guess if Trump did it, it would
too
be...
highbrow.
Yeah. Apparently the term we were looking for was baby face turn. Come on, you guys. You guys gotta consolidate on an answer for us here.
I'm gonna go with Jason's answer. Babyface.
Can we please make Thomas777 his Twitter writer in 2025? Thomas777 for press secretary. That's what I say. Okay, so speaking of Trump, real quick, there was this thread from a powerful mutual, Dissident Law. He said Trump's VP running mate should be Glenn Youngkin, who seems like he's probably the favorite right now. Like, not like the betting market favorite, but
Is that the Ohio guy?
Virginia.
Virginia.
Mm-hmm. He says Youngkin gives Trump exactly what he really needs from a VP in 2024. Working from this angle, it's easy to eliminate other possible running mates. Make this a little bigger. In 2016, DJT badly needed the evangelical vote, so Pence was a great choice. But in 2024, he has the evangelical vote secured, so it's clear he won't choose anyone with strict appeal to evangelicals, and none of his short list really does this anyway, aside from Ben Carson. However, DJT can't ever pick up enough black votes for it to matter, so I don't think he picks a black running mate. Thus, Scott, Carson, and Donalds are out. Moreover, he won't meaningfully impact the woman vote, as all polls show what a lost cause that is. Therefore, I don't think he picks a female running mate either. This eliminates Gabbard, Stefanik, and, thank God, Haley. And because the GOP is the party of Trump now, a running mate that appeals to the old guard is unnecessary. Thus, Vance, Rubio, and Burgum are out. Burgum is the governor of North Dakota, I believe, and a big oil and gas guy. In my view, 24 comes down to swing states. Further, Trump knows he's picking a MAGA successor, and I think he probably wants someone who shares a similar leadership style to his own. It's for all these reasons that I'm leaning most toward Youngkin. Youngkin turned Virginia red in 2022. Also, he's a former CEO, which appeals to Trump. As an aside, I noticed in the first debate, DJT referenced the former Virginia governor like a half dozen times. It's noteworthy because he didn't mention Texas, Florida, Ohio, or any other state. Similar to Pence, Youngkin is difficult to criticize, but even more so because Pence was an easy target as a hardline conservative Christian. Youngkin doesn't really have an obvious hook like that for critics to latch onto. Which, and I think that's maybe one of the most important things here. Like, there's lots of stuff about what Youngkin did it's like typical media fodder, but those are going to be the case for anything. Like, not like opposing mask mandates, opposing vax mandates, opposing CRT, trying to like make the education system more family representative. Those sorts of things that are kind of like quietly based. And they're easy fodder, but they also kind of aren't that super relevant to a lot of people now. So I think the fact that Youngkin, I think the thing a lot of right-wing people may not like about Youngkin is that he's kind of a squish. He kind of seems like he just sort of, there's nothing significant about him. But there can be a power in that, that was kind of Pence when Pence was selected. Like, a lot of people didn't know who he was. He was just kind of like, just sat there and he smiled. But from an electoral standpoint, it was a very powerful choice.
Pence attended I don't know if he still does, but he attended if I recall correctly, a UPCI church, which that's my background. So I was not a fan because of that.
Yeah, Youngkin. So he's the CEO he was the CEO or co-CEO for like 30 months of the Carlyle Group, which is it doesn't get any more center of the regime than that. So obviously there's lots of question marks about him. How much of an op is he? I would imagine he probably is. But I also as I've been updating my operating system here, watching the regime and watching the coalitions that are forming as they fracture. And I think that there's lots of reasons to think that the Carlyle Group may represent a part of the regime that is not nearly as it's not nearly as World Economic Forum. Let's say that.
Jason said, "Didn't I see Pence crying in a pool with a bunch of other men recently?"
Yeah. I don't think I have that one pulled up, but I threw that one in the bookmarks.
Man, I can't. Like, I've seen the clip going around several times, and I refuse to turn the audio on. I can't listen to that shit.
Men crying in a pool, holding on to each other.
Ugh.
Extremely homoerotic. It's like content that was designed with periabacy in mind.
Right.
It's like someone is feeding him content to keep his whole Twitter account going for a month.
Well, and he's like, they're all like dudes with like man buns and stuff like that. They all look like they're doing the Nordic warrior. LARP. They got like the haircut that you're going for. Yeah.
Youngkin is a MAGA successor. He's pro-life, opposes vax mandates, is anti-CRT, supports the Parents' Bill of Rights, worked to reverse the former governor's trans policies, is a true fiscal conservative, is outspoken on election integrity and securing the southern border. Finally, he flies under the radar. DJT values this because he doesn't want someone to outshine him, which is why Vivek is out. He adds an aura of stability and appropriate contrast to Trump the candidate, while also having executive business and government leadership and alignment on key MAGA and culture issues. I think he would also surprise a lot of people as a pick and thus generate a lot of press attention, while also forcing Dems to scramble to find ways to attack him. But he's popular in Virginia, which would make it hard to tear him down. In my view, Youngkin is the strongest running mate for Trump, and I hope he ends up being the pick. And there was some polling that just came out recently, for whatever the polling is worth, that showed Virginia has moved to where it's basically a toss-up, which for a long time it wasn't really attainable. And now it's, after the last debate was when I saw the numbers, it moved to, I think it was like Biden +1 or even Trump +1, somewhere in there. And Youngkin is genuinely very popular in Virginia. So that would be a powerful choice. Now, I did a little bit of digging on him and ran through some of the people close to him and discovered that his chief of staff, who he brought in when he came in, so when Youngkin was elected, it was quite a hullabaloo. It was a very hotly contested race. And interestingly, the person who he ran against was Terry McAuliffe, who was a key Clinton insider. And I kind of suspected at the time, and I feel even more so in hindsight, that Youngkin was someone who was tapped specifically to block McAuliffe. So it wasn't Youngkin himself who was important as much as someone who can block McAuliffe. So there was an intra-deep state battle over the governorship of Virginia, which is a pretty significant governorship. So that to me tells me already Youngkin is someone who has powerful anti-Clinton backers who are likely associated with either industrialization or militarization, these kind of adjacent sectors. So it would make sense that Virginia would be a place that they would be very concerned about. So there's you have to make some leaps here, but there's some interesting connections. And as soon as he was brought in, or as soon as he was elected as governor, he brought in his chief of staff, who was one of his closest friends, a guy who he played college basketball or high school or college basketball with, I think college. And he was the executive vice president and chief operating officer of the Export-Import Bank before becoming a treasury advisor for the Trump administration. He just unexpectedly, like 2 weeks ago, stepped down and cited health and family as reasons why he was stepping down. So, that kind of strikes me as getting ready to be chief of staff for a vice president nominee. So, some dots to connect here. We'll see if we can write these dot connections in pen, or if we need to leave them in pencil for now. But a lot of things I'm seeing indicate to me that I think Youngkin is probably going to be the VP pick.
Not to derail you, but I did see someone earlier in the chat. Andrew said Trump disavowed Project 2025 this morning. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I needed to verify that it was real, and I didn't. I just saw a screenshot. Let me see if I can find the statement here. Okay, yeah, here. So this is from the Twitter account that duplicates all of his Truth Social posts. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it. That's obviously not true. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them. So I don't... It's not that strong of a statement to me.
Yeah.
It seems like standard political fare. Like, obviously, the saying, I have no idea who is behind it is obviously transparently not true. So he's starting off with that, which tells me he's wanting to put distance between himself and them, which his campaign has been doing all along. His campaign is continuously, every time someone brings up Project 2025, they're like, no, the president's agenda is his own, and he's not subject to any outside influences or what have you. But this is just like standard boilerplate, just politicking. Really, like, the entire idea with Project 2025 is that they're using Trump, not that Trump is using them. They're positioning themselves to be the Heritage Foundation and their, I can't remember the name of it, but their like their handbook for presidential governance or whatever, it has been around since the 80s. It was the thing that was used by Reagan in
and I don't think
he
any
came
of
in.
them have any kind of I don't think any of them believe that, like, okay, some of their like, you go through their list of their agenda and a lot of it's like, wow, that's pretty, I mean, relative to the current climate, that's pretty extreme. Like, I like all of this extreme, but that's pretty extreme. And I don't think anybody there actually believes that any, or not, at least not all of that is going to be implemented. I think the hope is like, hey, maybe we'll get some of this, the needle moved a little bit.
Right. It's a you're starting the bargaining at the extreme point. You're making the big ask, and then you land somewhere short of that. And we've said all along that that's what we expect. We're like, what we appreciate is that this is what the extreme asking point is now. Like before, it was, I don't know, let's only give, I don't remember, something like let's only give citizenship to the DACA recipients or something. Instead of like, no, get rid of the entire program and get rid of all of them. They're like, well, let's just give citizenship to them and then nobody else. Like, this has been the standard GOP type of angle where their extreme ask is like, well, let's come back kind of close to the center a little bit. Now we're getting the extreme ask is like 100% of the things that we would want.
Yeah, this is how the left operates.
Right. And
put out the crazy shit. And when everyone recoils, you say, okay, well, we'll meet you in the middle, and you still are moving.
Right. And the nature of the beast as it is, which is like being self-evidently proclaimed by the Project 2025 agenda, is that if you really want to get stuff done, it doesn't, like, having the White House isn't enough. You have to completely flood the zone with your people and ensure that the only advisors the president is listening to is people who are aligned with you. So that's their agenda that they're undertaking, and they have a lot of money and influence behind them. So Trump's not going to be like, oh yeah, whatever Project 2025 sends me, I'm just going to rubber stamp. It's going to be, he's going to get the zone flooded with Project 2025 advisors, and they're putting themselves in a position where the Senate and the Congress are going to be, or the Senate and the House are going to be, their staffers are going to be populated by Project 2025 people. Because the thing that they've added now that made this so significant, they've done this policy manual for 40 years. Every single Republican president, even the Democrat presidents, they get the Project 2020 or the Heritage Foundation's policy manual for executive leadership or whatever they call it. They get that all the time. And then maybe they'll take some of the things or not take other things. It's completely comprehensive. It covers every possible subject of lawfare that you could imagine.
Yeah, it's a massive prospectus. That's like,
yeah, it's 1,000 pages.
Yeah, right.
So that's not new. What's new is the Academy for Republican governance or whatever they've called it, where they're actually putting together a training program to train and equip and place people into the government as when they're presenting the people to hire. Because when the president comes and he makes all of his appointments, like, people come and say, okay, here would be good candidates for these appointments. And he says, okay, give me the breakdown on these. Okay, that one. So he's not going out and like hand picking people. It's people being brought to him. So they're beefing up a gigantic register of people who are trained and conditioned to push for all of these things. And then those are going to be the people who now are populating Capitol Hill and bum rushing, so to speak. So again, we're under no illusions that we're going to get 100% of the Project 2025 vision implemented in February of 2025. The idea here is that there's been a significant change in the Republican Party and the way that they're approaching activism as if they actually want to accomplish things and not just be... They're beginning to behave like the inner party.
And as much as it pains me to say this, Josiah makes a good point. He says, just now realizing it's Project 2020 or it's Project 25 platform versus what? The Dems are running on nothing. That's a good point.
That is a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. There's even in 2020, like, he had a clear platform. His platform was like stability and hope, and he was contrasting himself as like the stable, secure, known quantity versus the super crazy, chaotic Trump. And people, that was compelling to people. People are like, okay, last 4 years has been pretty crazy and chaotic. I'm ready for some boring, predictable stability, and I'll take some corruption if that means boring, predictable stability. And the last 4 years have been like the first 4 years on steroids. So now Trump is actually the like predictable, stable one, and Biden, meanwhile, and his entire crew are they're simply just saying it out loud now. Like, you need to make sure that these career bureaucrats stay in place.
Yeah, right.
We've got some. I've got some things related to that here in just a minute. But first of all, you guys may have seen Erik Prince talking recently about the need to recolonize Africa. Here's a clip from that. And Kofafianon, another powerful mutual, has some interesting thoughts, an interesting critique. So here's the clip from Erik Prince.
Then it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens, because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually
all right, hold on a second. Hold on. People on the left are going to watch this. They're going to say, wait a minute, Erik Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right.
And she hears only whispers of some quiet conversation. She's coming in 12:30 flight. The moonlit wings reflect the stars that guide me towards salvation. I stopped an old man along the way, hoping to find some.
I want to see a similar mix like this made with Baron. Imagine that, like Baron out there looking all aristocratic, petting elephants.
Hurry, boy, it's waiting there for you. Gotta take a lot to drag me away from you. There's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do. I press the reins down in Africa. Gonna take some time to do the things we never
What a banger. Africa is American now, by the way.
The wild dogs cry out in the night as they grow restless, longing for some solitary company. I know that I must do what's right.
Ah, banger. It's so good. Yes, copyright strike incoming. Yeah, we're going to take the demonetization. That was worth it. That reminds me, yesterday's episode, as soon as we finished, I got a notification that it had been taken down. It was blocked in all ranges, all regions. I've had a number of videos that have been blocked in Russia in particular. Like the one we played the other day with the Red Hot Chili Peppers song, and it was blocked in Russia. Russia blocks the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But this one was
like I think I was playing it this morning.
Yeah, so it was the Norm Macdonald SNL clip that got it blocked all over the place. So it was blocked in every single region. It was not visible whatsoever. So it wasn't a channel strike, but it was just blocked, and I was given the option to trim out that segment and repost it. So I just did that. So if someone who watches it now will just not get the part where the video was playing. Kofafianon says, strong take from Erik Prince here, but slightly off. Colonialism isn't the solution. Imperialism is. Colonialism reached the ultimate form in the aidocracy of the 20th and 21st centuries. Imperialism is just extracting benefits from the foreign possessions, which actually aligns incentives correctly. You can extract more from a more productive possession. The problem isn't that the African bureaucrats line their pockets. The problem is that they're lining their pockets with aid money. How do you increase the supply of aid money? By being more pathetic. How do imperial administrators line their pockets? With skim from the proceeds of foreign trade. How do you increase the supply of that? By making the place more productive. Very interesting observation.
That's a good
I
point.
think you just duplicated
Then it's time for us to.
the same video.
Then it's time for us.
I thought that was a really
us to
interesting point. Anarcho-colonialism, just let the private armies duke it out. Return things to proper scale. He says, anarcho-imperialism, perfect. You've invented the East India Company. Which is really a lot of how, if you listen to Erik Prince, he's basically talking about, like, the East India Company model. Taking, there's still a lot of boomer to him, the way he sees all these things, but one of the key observations that he makes is that for some of these areas, and I think for some of these areas it's probably just not going to be possible, or it's going to take a very long time before it is, and it would be kind of hard to tell which one of those is the case, but the ability to own private property and set up a business and begin monetizing your land is a really key aspect of the liberal economic policy that caused so much growth and prosperity. And not having that in a given region becomes a tool of the sellouts to their own country who get into leadership positions and then are basically just like paid mafiosos that the liberal NGOs install to create a fund for they're basically like banks kind of for liberal NGOs to funnel money to each other. So a more honest approach to this, I think he makes a great case. The more honest approach to this is just imperial control of these areas. You are now a possession of ours, and we're going to dictate to you how this is going to run. You're gonna build up your local industries. We're going to help you do that, and your power is going to be dependent upon how productive you can make your people, which means you're going to have to. You're going to have to incorporate aspects of property theory and happiness for your people and all that sort of thing to make them more productive, to make you wealthier. This actually really aligns the incentives properly. And I'd say, as we move into an era where America, we haven't seen America functioning as an empire yet. We've seen America existing as a proxy for a collapsing empire. But as America moves into its imperial phase, I think we're probably going to see a return of things like the East India Company, like private companies that are explicitly authorized, not the NGO model where it's this like subversive managerial approach, but just companies that are explicitly authorized to go in and take possession of this territory and operate as a proxy of the imperial government.
Yeah, they're issued like a formal monopoly from the state.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so here's a thread on Kamala Harris that relates to what we were talking about just a little bit ago. Zach Henry, who is creating total virality. I don't know anything about him. He says, in early 2021, I worked at a PR firm led by former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. The firm was a failure, but a remark Brown made about Kamala Harris during one of our calls stuck with me. Nobody is more responsible for the rise of Kamala Harris than Willie Brown. One of the most powerful Democrats in California history, Brown dated Harris in the mid-90s and said he influenced her career after appointing her to well-paid positions on 2 state commissions. She was well-paid and so was he. Brown also helped Harris win her race for San Francisco DA in 2004. The LA Times reported that Brown's stamp of approval was crucial in raising money from the San Francisco establishment. Without Brown, there likely wouldn't be a Vice President Kamala Harris today. Quoting, Kamala is a tactician. She'll be the nominee in 4 years and she'll win. I was stunned when I heard Brown say this in February of 2021. After all, Biden had only been sworn in as president a month earlier. Perhaps more surprising, though, was Brown's conviction that Harris would take over. Kamala Harris was a bust during the 2020 Democratic primary. So what made Willie Brown so confident she'd win a presidential election when she couldn't even secure her party's nomination? A few days after our call, Brown and his then partner Ed Rollins gave an hour-long interview to the LA Times about their new venture. Although more reserved about any specific timeline during the interview, Brown reiterated his belief that Harris's future was the presidency. Quoting from the LA Times, asked about the future of his one-time girlfriend, Vice President Kamala Harris, Brown said, her future is the presidency, period. She's that able, that smart, really a much more clever politician than most people think. There's right now a lot of speculation about Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, or even Michelle Obama taking over if Biden were to step aside. But that's all noise. Take it from someone with intimate knowledge of the situation. Take it from Willie Brown. It's always been Kamala. There's an article from Axios, Behind the Curtain, Kamala Harris's Epic Edge. If President Biden steps aside, Vice President Harris would be almost impossible to beat for the nomination, thanks to endorsements, money, optics, and 2028 politics, top officials tell us.
Yeah.
Saying the quiet parts out loud.
Quite the edge.
If there's anyone truly familiar with Willie's Willie, it's Kamala. Willie's Willie. I'll always be 12 years old in my heart. Yeah, it seems that all the indicators are pointing toward a Democratic presidential nominee, Kamala Harris. And it's funny, this guy's looking at it, he's like, well, how would she win if she can't even get her party's nomination? How would she be president? Because he thinks that that the only way to get your party's nomination is to be able to win over the voters, when it's very obvious that the Democratic Party has not worked that way in a long time. Slosher says, Emperor Tiberius told his provincial governors who were taxing people too much, a good shepherd shears his sheep, not skins them. Aha. That's them Romans, man. They had a way with words. Okay. So we have more of the All In podcast. The media is not doing its job. Huh. Welcome to 2017. Chamath breaks down the viral sharp as a tack clip. So down here is the clip. We'll just play part of it.
Of Biden. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America, billionaires in America.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart. He's on his game. His mental acuity is great.
This is a very sharp president.
And the people that I've talked to say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine.
They say he's sharp.
There's not a problem.
He was sharp.
He was sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
The president is sharp and he is tireless.
He is sharp as ever.
And he's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
His brain is good. He's still great.
He is sharp in meetings.
I believe the people who say that behind closed doors, Joe Biden remains sharp.
In meetings, Joe Biden is sharp.
Is it just like a 6-minute video of that?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That was 1 minute of a 6-minute video of that. 6 minutes and 23 seconds, in fact. So this is what Chamath has to say.
Did you guys see this clip, by the way? 6 minutes of 100 spokespeople and proxies, and they all had the same thing to say about President Biden, which is he is sharp as a tack.
Sharp as a tack?
Which end of the tack? The round part?
This is a man who is sharp.
This is a very sharp president.
And the people that I've talked to say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine.
They say he's sharp.
He was sharp.
He's sharp as a tack. If I asked 100 people on the street, what do you think of Elon Musk? You'd have 100 different statements. There'd be a general theme, but you would not have even 50 people repeat the exact same words. And so you have this funny situation where 100 different people were basically saying the exact same talking point. So it's not even a point of view. It was just something that they were told to say by somebody else. And that, to your point, Sachs, is the real issue, which is that you don't really have an honest media here. And so there is no check and balance on power right now. Did you?
So we'll continue following. We'll continue following the All In podcast's radicalization. It's funny. It's funny seeing this sort of thing now, and it's such a mundane observation.
Yeah.
Like yeah, the media are controlled, operating off of talking points, but to these guys, after following them for a long time, I could tell these guys are genuinely stumbling upon this realization for the first time. They just have never lived in this world where they even had cause to question it. But it just so happens that now that they're noticing it, it happens to be the time when it's the most evident, and there's so many examples of it constantly every single day. So they're speed running the radicalization train here. So an example of I've got a couple articles here of the various different efforts. It's fascinating watching the just blatant, over the top coordinated propaganda, like the stuff we were just looking at, coming from the quote unquote mainstream or regime outlets that on one hand is just slobbing Joe Biden's knob continuously. And then there's another group of outlets that are ostensibly part of the same group that are doing the exact same thing with Kamala. So there's very clearly a divergence among the among the regime press. That we don't have a regime press anymore. They've broken. Now they may reconvene on something. They probably will around the election. As soon as there's a nominee put forth, then as soon as the election happens, like they're going to all congeal behind that person. But there will be some who won't. There will be some who will fall off because there are some people who have genuinely been blindly walking their way through this, and all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, what? There's going to be more and more radicalization that happens. Each time we have this big inflection point, more people are falling off the bandwagon. So, knob job. When Vengeful Son / PayPal Mafia is cringe, we win. I like that. So this is a from the New York Intelligencer.
Every time I see his face, man.
Do you know how easy he would be to meme as like if they had the most remotely competent memers? Do you know how easy it would be? Like the Dark Brandon memes those are killer.
Oh, dude, Xavier had a really great idea for a bit where he's like, okay, he's going to play this. I think he's calling him Handlebar Hank, but he's going to play this character where he's a fucking redneck with a mullet. And he's got the handlebar mustache, and he's your stereotypical redneck, but he's like all in on Biden, unironically. Yeah, fuck yeah, let's go, Brandon. You know,
like show like him driving a Corvette and licking an ice cream cone with the aviators on.
Oh yeah, dude, man, you put me in that position, I could totally rehab him within like a month.
It would like you wouldn't even have to keep it up, really. Like once you implanted that meme, it would be so powerful that it would persist.
It's like whoever's on Zuck's team. Get them working on Biden. You could totally change things.
Once again, our enemies are retarded. The conspiracy of silence to protect Joe Biden.
What's up, Mella?
The president's mental decline was like a dark family secret for many elite supporters. This is from Olivia Nuzzi, New York's Washington correspondent. If you've seen her, she's been a mainstay on Blue Check Twitter for a long time. She posts absolute cringe. What's up, Mella? President Joe Biden walked before a row of flags and took his place at a lectern stamped with the presidential seal. A few feet in front of him, thin panes of teleprompter glass, programmed with pre-written remarks, were positioned to meet his stare as he spoke into a microphone that would carry his voice through a sound system. Oh, is that how microphones work? They carry it through a sound system? Huh. His White House press secretary looked on. So did several senior White House officials. Anxiety clung to the humid summer air. What the president was about to say might determine the future of his presidency and perhaps the republic itself. Yet this was not going to be some grand pronouncement about war or peace or a shift in domestic policy. He was not delivering an official address or even a rally speech. He was not on stage in a stadium or auditorium or perched on a platform in a gilded government or hotel ballroom. He was not speaking to a crowd of thousands or even hundreds. There would be no video of his statement carried live to the world. There would be no photos, and there would be no published audio. In a tent on the backyard patio of a private home in suburban New Jersey, the president was eye to eye with a small group of powerful Democrats and rich campaign donors, trying to reassure them that he was not about to drop dead or drop out of the presidential race. So she's setting up this imagery very powerfully. You see what the imagery here is. We now have the heart of the millennial soul of the regime press beginning to point out how the Democrat Party is just a cabal of elite insiders and the people have no influence on them whatsoever. So we've even got the most blue-pilled of all people imaginable who are now calling out the so-called cathedral. The content of his speech would matter less than his perceived capacity to speak coherently at all, though much of what he would say would not be entirely decipherable. His words, as always, had a habit of sliding into a rhetorical pileup, an affliction that had worsened in the 4 years since he began running for president for the third time in 2020. He might begin a sentence loud and clear and then midway through sound as if he was trying to recite 2 or 3 lines all at once, his individual words and syllables dissolving into an incoherent gurgle. Still, he was fine, he told the donors. Old, sure, but fine. He was here, wasn't he? Things were actually going well by the numbers. The polls looked good, the money looked good, they were looking right for him. He looked pretty good for 81, no? Really, folks. And what choice did they have? As he liked to say, As my father liked to say, Joey, don't compare me to the Almighty. Compare me to the alternative. In total, his remarks would last for exactly 10 minutes. Long enough to inspire confidence in his abilities, advisors hoped, but not so long that he was at increased risk of calling those abilities further into question. As always with this president, the production surrounding any public appearance, even if it was semi-private, came down to timing and control. He could not spend too much time out in the wild, and the circumstances in which he could exist in such an environment with so many wobbly variables would need to be managed aggressively. According to rules set by the White House, the traveling protective pool, the rotating group of reporters run by the White House Correspondents Association that trails a sitting president to provide constant coverage of his movements for the press corps, would be permitted limited access to observe his remarks before being whisked away from the reception or wrangled in communications parlance and held elsewhere on the property. In a guest house where someone tuned an old television set to Real Time with Bill Maher. Obsessive efforts to control Biden were not a new phenomenon. But whereas in the last campaign, the incredible stagecraft surrounding even the smallest Biden event, speaking to a few people at a union hall in rural Iowa, say, or a barn in New Hampshire, seemed to be about avoiding the so-called gaffes that had become for him inevitable. The stagecraft of the 2024 campaign seems now to be about something else.
Do you remember people talking about Biden's gaffes? Those days are long gone.
Yeah, that's true.
I haven't heard that term in a while.
Now it's just, like now everyone's talking about them, but they don't even talk about the term anymore. The worry is not that Biden will say something overly candid or say something he didn't mean to say, but that he will communicate through his appearance that he is not really there. That is an interesting thing that for a dude who is clearly in advanced stages of dementia, he doesn't, we haven't had any instances of him like saying something, like releasing some military secret or like just mumbling out loud about stuff that he's not supposed to talk about publicly.
Like, they don't tell him that shit.
Exactly. He never is actually exposed to any of those sorts of things. And if that thought right there, like for the people who are starting to question that are like, he's clearly a like not in control of his own faculties. And yet we haven't had any scandals of him publicly saying anything that he shouldn't have said, revealing secrets or anything like that. So if you put two and two together, it's obvious he doesn't know about them. He's entirely an empty suit. You can't even, with that realization, you can't even like try to convince yourself, oh yeah, he's there and he's just got lots of really good advisors or something. These conversations are literally not happening in his presence. The display early Saturday evening was the last of 7 campaign events held across 4 states in the 48 hours that followed the first presidential debate. The events were designed to serve as both proof of life for concerned wealthy patrons of the Biden re-election effort and proof of the wisdom of their choices. Other concerned wealthy people were still buying. They didn't need to panic. So this is what the campaign events are for, therefore appealing to concerned wealthy people. The sprawling Red Bank estate on a hill overlooking the Navesink River belonging to Goldman Sachs executive turned governor Phil Murphy. The local press had reported that hundreds were expected to attend the event. Though the $10 million property could have easily accommodated such a crowd, it was more like 50. Fewer if you subtract official staff from members of the Biden family, including the First Lady and several grandchildren. But big money comes in small packs. And small packs, that's an interesting turn of phrase. And Tammy Murphy, the governor's wife, began her remarks with an unusual announcement. The couple had raised $3.7 million with their fundraiser, a number that had exceeded their goal.
I have a massive pack. That's why I don't have any money.
Well played, sir. This is personal for us, the governor said. We're all with you 1,000%. He called Biden America's comeback kid. The callback to Bill Clinton articulated the nervous, defensive energy that animated the evening. But Biden had not face-planted in a pit of bad press because of a mistake in his personal life. His problems would be much trickier to solve. A sex scandal might help him right now, in fact. The president, that would be a funny thing. Imagine a Biden sex scandal. We got a super chat. More Canadian dollars from Slosher. He says, the great thing about the regime media burning their social capital through COVID and now supporting Biden is that once normies lose trust in media, they don't go back easily. It's a very good point. Trust is notoriously something that is easy to lose and hard to gain. Asleep in Avalon. Do you homeboys believe it's the end times? Yes. It probably is not. Yeah. Probably not the way you do. Jason says, if he's the face of the regime, then even the regime is fucked on a global stage. Russia and China are not afraid of a government who would prop up Biden. Yep. That's one thing I forgot to mention yesterday on the clip of Trump on the golf course talking about Putin and Xi. Is you can tell when he talks about them that he actually sees them as like respectable adversaries. Like he takes them seriously. It's not bravado. When he talks about it, he's like, these guys are serious people. They're real guys. Listen to his long form interviews where he talks about his conversations with them. And like, these are genuinely like wealthy, powerful businessmen who are going and having a conversation with each other, and they each have mutual respect for each other. Whereas the average American president who goes to have a conversation with them, they're like, okay, so I'm just having a face with the mouthpiece. I'm having a face-to-face with the mouthpiece, but I don't actually get to talk to the people behind the scenes. Whereas Trump is a much more powerful vessel. There was a thing I highlighted. It didn't have much interesting to it apart from just the headline. But Putin, and in a speech, said that that Russia is very supportive of Trump's initiative to wind down the war in Ukraine, which I mean, obviously, but it's also, I think, noteworthy that he went out of his way to go say that publicly right now. Okay, yeah. The president had approached the lectern with his stiff gait, which his official medical report, written by Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who has led his care since he was vice president, attributes to a foot injury and an arthritic spine. An arthritic spine. How appropriate. I'd like to make 3 quick points, Biden said. Today we announced, since the debate, which wasn't my best debate ever, as Barack points out, we raised $27 million. It has long been a feature of Biden's speeches to refer to the former president in this familiar way. Barack and me is a frequent refrain, a reminder of his service to the nation's first black president, and a promise, too, of a return to normalcy after the aberrant rise of Donald Trump. Although large speakers lined the patio, and although Governor and Mrs. Murphy were perfectly audible in their remarks, understanding Biden's speech required intense focus. POTUS was difficult to hear at times, Tyler Pager of the Washington Post, assigned to circulate his statements in real time as the print pooler, wrote. So please check the transcript. The pool reporters often struggle with the challenge of how hard it is to hear or make sense of the president. Radio reporters do not always obtain usable audio of his remarks. Print reporters squint and strain and crane their necks, trying to find the best position by which their ears may absorb the vibration of his voice in the air. Such terrible writing. Reporters scrutinize...
Yeah, for real. Is this poetry? Is this a novel? Or like a novella? What are you doing here?
It's very much a hackneyed millennial knockoff of like long-form journalism. Reporters scrutinize, and also written by a woman. Reporters scrutinize their audio recordings and read quotes to one another after the fact. Is that what he said? You heard it in that order? You sure? Biden continued on. Secondly, I understand the concern after the debate. I get it. We didn't have a great night, but we're working hard and we're going to be working to get it done. Since the debate, the polls show a little movement and have me up a couple points. The donors broke into thunderous applause when the president said this about the polls. These people are all like, yeah, that's right, I didn't waste all my money. But what he said was false. Early public surveys immediately following the debate indicated that Biden was down overall a point or two, and surveys that asked respondents to rate the debate itself had him losing by mid-double digits. As a means of damage control, the campaign leaked some of its own internal polling, which had been until recently regarded as a state secret, to argue that the debate had not moved the needle. The president was losing by a slim margin before Thursday night, and he was still losing by that slim margin after Thursday night. In the days that followed, the polls would only grow grimmer. In fact, Biden went on, the big takeaway are Trump's lies. There's their platform, by the way.
Yeah, Trump's lies, despite the fact that they never actually say like what he lied about.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Trump's lies and Trump's mistruths and Trump's misstatements of fact and Trump's lies. It's like they come up with all these different ways to say it. The point is, I didn't have a great night, and neither did he. He returned to the central message of his campaign. The fact is that Donald Trump is a genuine threat to democracy, and that's not hyperbole. He's a genuine threat. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to America and what we stand for. Ask yourself the question, if not for America, who would lead the world? This is, if I remember right, this is he's reading teleprompter. He's not just riffing. Like this would be incoherent if he was just Joe Biden riffing. This was someone sat down and they wrote this into a teleprompter for him.
Did you hear that he's a threat to our democracy?
He's a threat to our freedom.
Did you know that?
I've heard it once or twice. The question was posed as a reminder of the stakes of the November election. During his term in office, Trump had sought to retreat from America's global commitments, abiding by a madman semi-isolationist theory of foreign policy that, in Biden's view and the view of many establishment actors across the ideological divide, had caused damage to the country's reputation. Will take a generation to... Okay. Yet Biden's comment also served as an unintentional reminder of the concerns about his own leadership. Just the day before, the Wall Street Journal had published a report that described how the president's frail appearance and inconsistent focus and performance presented challenges on the world stage. At the G7 summit in Italy in June, Biden had the distinction of being the only world leader who did not attend a private dinner party where candid diplomatic talks would happen off camera. Can you imagine that? The president does not attend the private dinner party where candid diplomatic talks happen off camera. The president of the United States. The other nations, the leaders of these other nations are like, you can see them when they're walking around with him. They're like, what the fuck do we do? How, like, what's going on here? Who are we relating to? At a European Union summit in Washington in October, Biden struggled to follow the discussions and stumbled over his talking points to such a degree that he required the intervention of Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The White House denied the journal's reporting. Under vines of white moonflowers on the governor's patio, I watched as the president neared the end of his 10-minute speech. If a gaffe is when a politician accidentally tells the truth, he was still making them. The truth he told now was, I've got a hell of a lot of plans for the next 4 years. God willing, as my father used to say. In January, I began hearing similar stories from Democratic officials, activists, and donors. All people who supported the president and were working to help re-elect him to a second term in office. Following encounters with the president, they'd arrived at the same concern. Could he really do this for another 4 years? Could he even make it to Election Day? Uniformly, these people were of a similar social strata. They lived and socialized in Washington, New York, and Los Angeles. They did not wish to come forward with their stories. They did not want to blow a whistle. They wished that they could whistle past what they knew and emerge in November victorious and relieved, having helped avoid another 4 years of Trump. What would happen after that? They couldn't think that far ahead. Their worries were more immediate. This is the consequence crisis. You don't even have the ability to plan for the future anymore. When they discussed what they knew, what they had seen, what they had heard, they literally whispered. They were scared and horrified, but they were also burdened. They needed to talk about it, though not on the record. They needed to know that they were not alone and not crazy. Things were bad, and they knew things were bad, and they knew others must also know things were bad, and yet they would need to pretend outwardly that things were fine. The president was fine. The election would be fine. They would be fine. To admit otherwise would mean jeopardizing the future of the country, and, well, nobody wanted to be responsible personally or socially for that. Their disclosures often followed innocent questions. Have you seen the president lately? How does he seem? Often they would answer with only silence, their eyes widening cartoonishly, their heads shaking back and forth. Or with disapproving sounds. What?
Imagine a dinner party with people making noises like that.
The whole conversation is just that. Someone comes in.
Your screamo thing.
Or with a simple, not good, not good. Or with an accusatory question of their own. Have you seen him? Those who encountered the president in social settings sometimes left their interactions disturbed. Longtime friends of the Biden family who spoke to me on the condition of anonymity were shocked to find that the president did not remember their names. At a White House event last year, a guest recalled with horror realizing that the president would not be able to stay for the reception because it was clear he would not be able to make it through the reception. The guest wasn't sure they could vote for Biden since the guest was now open to an idea that they had previously dismissed as right-wing propaganda. The president may not really be the acting president after all. Others told me the president was becoming increasingly hard to get a hold of, even as it related to official government business, the type of things any U.S. president would communicate about on a regular basis with high-level officials across the world. Biden instead was cocooned within mounting layers of bureaucracy, spoken for more than he was speaking or spoken to. Saying hello to one Democratic megadonor and family friend at the White House recently, the president stared blankly and nodded his head. The First Lady intervened to whisper in her husband's ear, telling him to say hello to the donor by name and to thank them for their recent generosity. The president repeated the words his wife had fed him. It hasn't been good for a long time, but it's gotten so much worse, a witness to the exchange told me. So much worse. Who was actually in charge? Nobody knew. But surely someone was in charge, and surely there must be a plan, since surely the situation could not endure. I'd heard these questions posed at cocktail parties on the coast, but also at MAGA rallies in Middle America. There emerged a comical overlap between the beliefs of the nation's most elite liberal Biden supporters and the beliefs of the most rabid and conspiratorial supporters of former President Trump. Resistance or QAnon, they shared a grand theory of America in 2024. There has to be a secret group of high-level government leaders who control Biden and who will soon set into motion their plan to replace Biden as the Democratic presidential nominee. Nothing else made sense. They were in full agreement. Isn't that such a fascinating observation?
Uh-huh.
And this is in The Intelligencer. What I saw for myself confirmed something was amiss. I spent much of the spring, summer, and fall of 2020 on the primary campaign trail with Biden. In the period before he was granted Secret Service protection, his events, which were usually of modest size, were more freewheeling affairs, and reporters inched up to the candidate as he interacted with voters at the rope line. He rarely took questions. A teetotaler, he was not the kind of candidate who hung out at the hotel bar after the campaigning day was through. On occasion, Jill Biden would bring a glass of Pinot Noir in a Marriott lobby with her aides, but he was visible and closely observant. A campaign trail is a grueling exercise for anybody of any age, from the youngest network embeds to the oldest would-be presidents. And back then, there were days when Biden appeared sharper than on others. I knew it was a good day when he saw me and winked. On such occasions, he joked and prayed and cried with voters. He stayed to take a photo with every supporter. He might even entertain a question or two from the press. He had color in his face. There was no question he was alive and present. On bad days, which were unpredictable but reliably occurred during a challenging news cycle, he was less animated. He stared off. He did not make eye contact. He would trip over his words, even if they were programmed on a teleprompter. On such occasions, he was hurried out of the venue quickly and ushered into a waiting SUV. This April, at a reception before the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I joined a sea of people waiting for a photo with the President and First Lady in the basement of the Washington Hilton. A photo line is a trauma. Yes. The main attraction must stand there, reduced to a human prop, with person after person, group after group, nodding and saying hello and flashing the same smile a zillion times so that guests leave the event with their little token commemorating their split second in proximity to history. People of all ages suffer in a photo line. It is tiring and unnatural, an icky transaction that requires robotic discipline on the part of its star and reveals primal horrors in the part of its participants. Says the woman who spends all of her life standing in photo lines. In Washington, even the most allegedly serious people can behave like pushy fangirls. So I grade photo line behavior and performance on a curve. Who can be their best selves wedged into such a nightmarish dynamic, and in the basement of a Hilton, no less? The first person I saw upon entering the subterranean space was the First Lady. I maintain personal fondness for Dr. Biden, whose controversial preferred honorific I am using out of respect. The day that my mother died, I happened to be traveling with her in Virginia, and when she learned about it, she was incredibly decent. She called to talk with me about grief, and she sent me a lovely note. The Bidens are famous for their willingness and ability to mourn with others, so I was not surprised exactly, but I was impressed, since among White House officials, members of the Biden family, and supporters of the president, I had always been treated with suspicion or outright contempt after my critical coverage of him during the 2020 campaign. I had written that there were concerns, implicit or explicit, about his ability to stay agile and alive for the next 4 years, and that for political reporters marveling every day at just how well this isn't going, watching Biden can feel like being at the rodeo. You're there because on some level you know you might see someone get killed. Biden world insiders did not appreciate that very much, and they never forgot or fully forgave it. I was particularly touched then by the First Lady's kindness, and I always think of that when I see her. In the basement, I smiled and said hello. She looked back at me with a confused panic expression. It was as if she had just received horrible news and was about to run out of the room and into some kind of family emergency. Hi, she said. Then she glanced over to her right. Ah. I had not seen the president up close in some time. I had skipped this season's holiday parties and, preoccupied with covering Trump's legal and political dramas, I hadn't been showing up at his White House. Unlike Trump, he wasn't very accessible to the press anyway. Why bother? Interesting comparison to Trump. Biden had done few interviews. He wasn't prone to interrupting his schedule with a surprise media circus in the Oval Office. He kept a tight circle of the same close advisors who'd been advising him for more than 30 years. There's the Biden family. These people have been working for more than 30 years. They don't want to relinquish their station. So unlike with his predecessor, you didn't need to hang around in West Wing hallways to figure out who was speaking to him. It was all pretty locked down and predictable in terms of the reality you could access as a member of the press with a White House hard pass. I followed the First Lady's gaze and found the president. Now I understood her panicked expression. Up close, the president does not look quite plausible. It's not that he's old. We all know what old looks like. Bernie Sanders is old. Mitch McConnell is old. Most of the ruling class is old. The president was something stranger, something not of this earth. It is interesting, I think, that she's using the phrase ruling class. That was not a term that would be used seriously in the mainstream press not that long ago. This was true even in 2020. His face had then an uncanny valley quality that injectable aficionados call low trust. If only by millimeters, his cosmetically altered proportions knocked his overall facial harmony into the realm of the improbable. His thin skin, long a figurative problem and now a literal one, was pulled tightly over cheeks that seemed to vary month to month in volume. Under artificial light and in the sunshine, he took on an unnatural gleam. He looked, well, inflated. His eyes were half shut or open very wide. They appeared darker than they once had, his pupils dilated. He did not blink at regular intervals. The White House often did not engage when questioned about the president's stare, which sometimes raised alarm on social media when documented in official videos produced by the White House. The administration was above conspiratorial chit-chat that entertained seriously scenarios in which the president was suffering from a shocking decline most presidents were not seeing.
Most Americans,
sorry. If the president was being portrayed that way, it was by his political enemies on the right who promoted through what the press office termed cheap fakes a caricature of an addled creature unfit to serve. They would not dignify those people or people doing the bidding of those people with a response. For many inclined to support the president, this was good enough. They did not need to monitor the president's public appearances because under his leadership, the country had returned to the kind of normal state in which members of a first world democratic society had the privilege to forget about the president for hours or days or even weeks at a time. Trump required constant observation. What did he just do? What would he do next? Oh God, what was he doing right at that moment? Biden could be trusted to perform the duties of his office out of sight. Many people were content to look away. My heart stopped as I extended my hand to greet the president.
It's the longest freaking article of all time.
I tried to make eye contact, but it was like his eyes, though open, were not on. His face had a waxy quality. He smiled. It was a sweet smile. It made me sad in a way I can't fully convey. I always thought, and I wrote, that he was a decent man. If ambition was his only sin, and it seemed to be, he'd committed no sin at all by the standards of most politicians I'd covered. He took my hand in his, and I was startled by how it felt. Not cold, but cool. The basement was so warm that people were sweating and complaining that they were sweating. This was a silly black tie affair. I said hello. His sweet smile stayed frozen. He spoke very slowly and in a very soft voice. "And what's your name?" he asked. Exiting the room after the photo, the group of reporters, not instigated by me, I should note, made guesses about how dead he appeared to be percentage-wise. 40%, one of them asked. It was a bad night. That's the spin from the White House and its allies about Thursday's debate. But when I watched the president amble stiffly across the stage, my first thought was, he doesn't look so bad. For months, everything I'd heard, plus some of what I had seen, led me to brace for something much more dire. And that's the end.
What a weird way to end.
Right? When I heard, I was like, is there more? Oh, that's it? Okay. So then...
That article could have been like a quarter as long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was her, like, she... In another life, she would write, like, really shitty romantic...
Yeah, romance novels.
Romance novels, yeah.
Like
and so she's, like, flexing
novels.
that muscle. Yeah. Yeah. So let's contrast that with this one. Critic's Notebook in the New York Times. For Joe Biden, what seems like age might instead be style. In this respect, the president has something in common with Beethoven, Wagner, and Martin Scorsese. Look at this. Look at this little clever bit of art here. Style in politics isn't just stagecraft and character work. It's the politician's way of expressing an idea, presenting an argument, embodying a set of principles and beliefs, and communicating them to the public. Joe Biden, you might have heard, is old. I'm sure you have thoughts about that, about his mental agility and physical stamina, about his chances for surviving a second term that is scheduled to end 2 months after his 86th birthday.
Holy cow, man.
But presidential age isn't only a medical or actuarial matter. It has a symbolic weight, a range of cultural meanings that have so far been overlooked. Biden is 81. Donald Trump is 77. Biden's age has become an issue in a way that Trump's has not because we are being asked, as citizen critics, to judge the president's late style. This is what we saw at the State of the Union on Thursday night. In criticism, to speak of a late style is to highlight the way certain artists at the end of their careers enter a new and distinct phase of creativity. Sometimes they produce a succession of masterpieces that both fulfill and transcend the promise of the earlier work. Richard Wagner's final run of operas, the 3 major novels Henry James published at the start of the 20th century, the movies Martin Scorsese is making now. In other cases, an older artist will revisit familiar themes with a new sense of playfulness and freedom, like Henri Matisse making Cutouts, Shakespeare bending the rules of genre in The Winter's Tale and The Tempest, or Bob Dylan reshuffling the pages of his own songbook. And then there are those artists who swerve in a more radical, dissonant direction. The maturity of the late works, the German theorist Theodor Adorno wrote of Ludwig von Beethoven, does not resemble the kind one finds in fruit. They are, for the most part, not round, but furrowed, even ravaged. Beethoven's Missa Solemnis and last string quartets often unsettle listeners with their dissonance and their unexpected harmonies. The literary critic Edward W. Said, who wrote the book On Late Styles, suggests that late work like this has the power to render disenchantment and pleasure without resolving the contradiction between them. Clint Eastwood's recent films, notably the 1517 to Paris, The Mule, and Cry Macho, at once the corniest and most avant-garde movies in his canon, fit this description. So do Philip Roth's bitter, incandescent final books, Exit Ghost, Indignation, and Nemesis, which distill the prodigious inventiveness of his great middle period novels into austere, jagged, sometimes bluntly funny meditations on sex, death, and disgrace. What does any of this have to do with Joe Biden? Politics is not art, but it is a craft.
As Ryan Isaac says, when I think of Biden, I think artist. Oh, yeah.
This is... Reading this, I don't know what it is about the structure of syllables, but reading this feels like I'm bouldering. Like I'm running over like a field of gigantic rocks. That's how the actual act of reading all of this out loud. It's very kludgy. What does any of this...
That word up?
I don't know. I think I used it the other day, and I wondered then if I just made it up. Nope, it is a word. Kludgy. Awkwardly or inelegantly made or done.
How about that? That high verbal IQ.
That's right. That I don't know where the words come from, but once they're in there, they stay there.
Comes from that 1% DNA.
Uh-huh. Yep. The nose.
Mm-hmm.
Politics is not art, but it is a craft, a vocation, and not many people have practiced it as long or as devotedly as Biden. In a profile this month in The New Yorker, Evan Osnos notes that for decades there was a lightness about Joe Biden, a springy, mischievous energy that is no longer in evidence. For better or worse, Osnos writes, he is a more solemn figure now. The word figure is well chosen. The Biden the public thinks it knows has always been, like every other politician on the national stage, a construct, a character, a persona. That lightness, as well as the tendencies toward verbosity, sentimentality, and handsiness that were part of Biden's brand as senator and vice president, was a matter of style.
Jeez, man.
Which isn't to say it was inauthentic. Quite the opposite. A politician's style, like a writer's or an actor's, expresses a true self as it is filtered through the discipline of performance.
Man, listening to this, it's just giving me the ick.
The contrast between these is...
This is almost pornographic compared to the last one.
Uh-huh. The last one, so if I hadn't told you the author of the last one, you could have picked out like the age, the sex, the social status. All of these things would have been really evident. It's a single, like, late 30s woman. This here, you could do the exact same thing. It's very obvious that this was written by a middle-aged man who is like pornographically obsessed with visualizing himself as a great writer who has a great grasp of all the arts and the culture, and it's like an act of masturbation.
Yuck.
Imagine a middle-aged man sitting at his desk and his whitey tighties jerking off. That's what's happening here.
His dockers are on the floor.
With his loafers kicked off to the side.
He's got his tube socks on, pulled up around his calves.
They're like the diabetic socks that are like they apply pressure.
Yeah, compression socks. Yeah. He's got water retention.
He's got his ties flipped back over his shoulder.
Yeah, like
and it keeps falling down.
The bottom three buttons are unbuttoned, kind of spread out over his big gut.
He's got a big old bunch of fuzz in his belly button. Oh man, Slosher says I feel seen.
A couple zits in the crease between his gut and his pelvis.
Oh god,
nice and greasy.
Okay, we're gonna keep reading. This is getting worse than the reading. Trump's style hasn't changed. He is manifestly the same figure he has been at least since he entered electoral politics in 2015. That may be one reason that his age seems less relevant to voters. But Biden, during his term in office, and especially in the early stages of what will be his last campaign, seems different. In Osnos's account, the mercurial mix of confidence and insecurity that defined his earlier persona has given way to a confidence that borders on serenity.
Oh my God.
It's not a complete break with the past. The 9-minute journey from the door of the House chamber to the podium on Thursday night, during which the president schmoozed, kissed, mugged, and took selfies, was what you might call vintage Biden, as was the self-deprecating joke that kicked off the speech. But Americans who remember Barack Obama's salty, smiling sidekick, or the shoulder-grabbing senator from Delaware, might find the solemnity and blunt combativeness of the 46th president disconcerting. The cadence and timbre of his voice are choppier and gruffer than before, his gestures more measured, his bearing stiffer.
Man, this is hell for me. Imagine an eternity just locked in a chair listening to this. Ugh. Kill me.
We're a clockwork oranging Cooper right now.
Yeah, really, for real.
Thursday night's speech echoed some often heard themes and hewed in its long middle section to some of the chief requirements of the genre. The listing of accomplishments, the policy promises, the shout-outs to ordinary citizens in the room. What was startling, though, was the abruptness of the tonal shifts, the quick swivels from indignation to humor, from data points to grandiloquence, and the loose, energetic way Biden handled them.
I want to punch this guy. He didn't get thrown in enough lockers.
Grandiloquency. Style in politics isn't just stagecraft and character work. It's the politician's way of expressing an idea, presenting an argument, embodying a set of principles and beliefs, and communicating them to the public. For most of Biden's public career, he was a creature of the status quo, and at the same time a proponent of abstract ideals of progress, novelty, and change. In other words, he was a typical politician, perhaps the typical Democratic politician of his era. His style represented a kind of exaggerated normalcy, like top 40 AM radio or a primetime sitcom. First elected to the Senate in 1972, he was part of both the school desegregation backlash and the post-Watergate reformist wave. In the late 1980s, when he started running for president, he sounded at sometimes like a new Democrat tacking toward a centrist, technocratic future against the orthodoxies of the past, at others like a preacher of the old-time New Deal religion. He was a shrewd legislator who would be clumsy and undisciplined in public, generally well-liked but not always taken seriously.
The New Deal religion, that's interesting.
Uh-huh. Yeah, as I read these kinds of things, like, I wonder how much of the history that we read was written by people of this exact... Like, imagine 500 years you come back and you uncover this article written about the president at the time, and you don't have any cultural context for understanding the tone and the personality of the person writing it and everything. How much of our very serious history is equivalent to this sort of stuff?
Yeah, right. I don't know. You read... just last week I was reading some of Eusebius, I believe, of Caesarea, writing about Constantine. Dude, talk about a simp. It's kind of gross. Tone it down, man.
It's like this?
Yeah, it's like this. It's bad. This is like, 340 AD or something. He's like the biggest Constantine fanboy.
That's funny. By 2008, Biden's long institutional experience, his establishment credentials, and his gregarious temperament made him something of an ideal vice presidential foil for the young, cerebral Obama. Oh, yeah. Cerebral is always what I thought of when I saw Obama. In the White House, Biden served as wise man and wise guy, contributing gravitas or comic relief as the occasion warranted. Until the 2016 election, the vice presidency looked as if it would be the last chapter in Biden's electoral career, as late as he would get. But then the status quo that had defined him collapsed. Top 40 AM radio is a thing of the past. Network sitcoms are not what they used to be. American politics isn't either. In 2020, Biden ran as an agent not of change but of restoration. A man who, by virtue of his familiar face and long track record, could be counted on to bring the country back to normal after the shocks of the Trump presidency, the COVID pandemic, and the racial unrest that followed the murder of George Floyd. That didn't happen. Biden's late style reflects his recognition of a rupture that he finds at once undeniable and intolerable.
Man.
Said wrote that lateness is being at the end, fully conscious, full of memory, and also very, even preternaturally aware of the present.
Oh my God.
This is where Biden, in his final campaign, finds himself now. He insisted to his listeners, both in the room and beyond it, that history is watching, a phrase that summons past, present, and future into a single volatile moment. At least since Lincoln, the language of American politics, Biden's vernacular for more than half a century, has been both nostalgic and progressive, pointing backward to a lost golden age and forward to an ever more perfect union. The most successful politicians, Reagan, Obama, have managed to bind a mythic past and an idealized future into a single prophetic story. Biden, in his early, unsuccessful presidential campaigns, attempted to articulate a version of that story, conjuring folksy images of middle-class, mid-century Americans and vague, rosy visions of an America whose best days were yet to come. He wasn't especially convincing. When he revisits those tropes now, it is with a sense of their fragility. He uses them to frame the argument that American liberal democracy finds itself in mortal danger. The sturdy old rhetoric of striving families and the long struggle for justice is itself imperiled and is part of what late Biden is trying to rescue. If this election is about the survival of democracy, he has cast himself not as its savior, but, for the last time, as its most plausible representative.
Thank God that's over.
A.O. Scott is a critic at large for the Times Book Review, writing about literature and ideas. He joined the Times in 2000 and was a film critic until early 2023. This is A.O. Scott. I don't know if you guys could see him.
Maybe Google him.
There you go.
There he is.
That ought to make that visual we were crafting a little bit ago all the more poignant.
You know, that really does fit.
Mm-hmm. You know what's really so that writing, that type of
that's a theater
hagiography.
Kid. Yeah, hagiography is a great way to describe it.
That is an art form, and he is extremely proficient in that art form. But he's like a man out of time, because this is a window into the view of a large number of Americans. Like, they actually believe this is the world they believe they live in. They see Biden. This is like a masterpiece. Biden's life story is an absolute masterpiece in how to create a politician out of thin air. Just basically prop up a cutout and have him deftly navigate all of these different times and changes. And he has like the perfect personality to kind of have the cult of personality about him that his people love and his enemies absolutely hate. Biden is a really fascinating American character that really combines all of he's like the absolute archetypal boomer. That his lifespan basically covers the entire boomer generation. And he's like the logo for the boomers, I think. I think that he's the person who should be identified with the boomer generation more than anyone else. Okay, so let me see some of the comments here. This is straight Biden sexual. This reads like Disney Star Wars fan fiction. I thought the only evidence of someone choking on Biden D was on Hunter's laptop. This article proves I was wrong. Silly me. So another interesting thing that was dropped in the New York Times on a different subject. Andrew Beck, USA, tweets, "Good morning. In New York Times today, a deeper, slightly less panic-stricken examination of the Society of American Civic Renewal and the broader cultural movement it is reifying around the country." So this is the headline. I have the article, and we're going to go through it in just a minute. Why a new conservative brain trust is resettling across America.
Did you see, kind of unrelated, but this picture reminded me. If you've been seeing these pictures going around of PewDiePie with like his family, and they're like walking through the field, and it's all idyllic, and he's on his as I've heard it described, his like husband, his good husband father arc. And you get a bunch of leftoids who are reacting to this like, this looks like Nazism.
Yeah, there's it's a picture of PewDiePie with his kid on his shoulders and his wife happily like laughing and standing out in a nice green field. Looks like Sound of Music kind of. And some fucking lefty groid like took the picture and tweeted out, "This kind of has Nazi vibes, doesn't it?" Like a happy white family standing in a field of grass is Nazism.
Yep.
The pro-Trump professionals aren't just talking about remaking Western civilization. Some are uprooting their lives to show they mean it. As far from trad LARPs, apocalyptic pipe dreams, or purely political movements, we are simply standing on Christian values that beget a civilized way of life, even if it means we must make life-altering choices such as leaving our ancestral homes like New York and California. And he's got some from the article. We're going to go read the article, so I won't read it now. Men like Ryan P. Williams and Skylar R. Cresson are Californians. They love their country and their homes, but they know that our times are not ordinary and that the most extraordinary measure men of means can take in such times is to uproot and plant again in new, friendlier soil. There's an interesting shift going on to Texas. I think there's a renewed sense of seeking community and shared values and culture amongst right-wing folks, Ryan Williams told the Times.
Wait, hold on. Go back up. Look at that goofball.
He is the president of Claremont.
He's wearing brown shoes and no tie.
Yep.
And does he have navy pants on? Navy pants and then like, what a goofball.
It's a navy pants and a green like tweed jacket.
Ugh. Dude.
Yeah, I'm not digging it.
Who's that gay dude on Twitter? That gay like men's fashion guy.
Oh yeah, the one that everyone's getting really tired of.
Yeah, what's his name?
Derek.
Derek. Talk to him. Take some advice from him.
Mm-hmm. His whole like at first I found him really interesting because like he has really fast. It's like fashion from a technical standpoint is really interesting, and I think a lot of his points are well made. But it's become very clear that he has a shtick, which is find conservative guy and use him as the impulse to start a thread where everything bad is conservative and everything good is liberal and bougie. And it very clearly became obvious that it's just a shtick. He only has one setting. So people have been dunking on him. Many of you may not know Skylar Cresson, but he has been modestly modeling and patiently teaching what our ancestors understood, and many are realizing now, that you must be rooted in somewhere, something, and someone greater than yourself in the present. Others, like Joshua Abatoy, Business, the managing director at New Founding, are making the return to their ancestral homelands from elite metropolitan confines, casting a vision and doing foundational work that those with shared values can plant new roots in fertile soil. Most of you know my work and my family's resettlement from my dad's New York to my mom's Texas. You may have read my writing on Christian civilization and American aristocracy. Now you know definitively that I am not Mormon. I do not preach sectarianism or even nationalism. This is the bottom line. For all the hair on fire, half-baked hit pieces on good men like Charles Haywood and Nate Fisher, this is what we want. For Christianity to again be a civilizational identity. Yes, a generic expression of rebellion against the dying of the light. And so here's the link for the whole story. Now this is, before we do that, I want to compare the tone of that article to the tone of this one. This is a recent one from, it says more than 3 months ago. I wanted to see the exact date that it was written, but it does. Oh yeah, March 11. This is Jason Wilson. The whole profile we built up a little bit ago of the guy sitting there at his computer with his Dockers around his ankles. That is Jason Wilson is the most that guy imaginable. You got to see this guy's face. Hold on.
Okay.
He is not the black guy with the big beard. Here. He is the absolute essence of the regime press who's constantly running around the internet trying to suss out Nazis.
He looks like a troll.
Yes, he is a troll. So this was in The Guardian. Revealed U.S. conservative think tanks links to extremist fraternal order. Claremont Institute officials closely involved with Society for American Civic Renewal, which experts say is rooted in Christian nationalism. The president of the right-wing Claremont Institute and another senior Claremont official are both closely involved with the shadowy Secret for American Civic Renewal, an exclusive men-only fraternal order which aims to replace the U.S. government with an authoritarian, aligned regime, which experts say is rooted in extreme Christian nationalism and religious autocracy. The revelations emerge from documents gathered in public records requests, including emails between several senior members of SACR, Claremont President Ryan P. Williams, its Director of State Coalitions, and Boise State University Professor Scott Yanor, and others, including former soap manufacturer and would-be warlord Charles Haywood.
I can't believe these people, they still take Charles Haywood seriously when he says he wants to be a theocratic warlord.
It's fantastic bait.
Oh yeah, and they totally buy it, like hook, line, and sinker. They're like, this is the most on the nose shit post ever, and they're like, he wants to be a warlord.
The trove also contains an internal SACR mission statement with a far more radical edge than the public vision now recorded on the organization's website. The document speaks of recruiting a brotherhood who will form the backbone of a renewed American regime and who understand the nature of authority and its legitimate forceful exercise, whose objectives include to collect, curate, and document a list of potential appointees and hires for a renewed American regime. The document does not indicate that such renewal will take place through participation in electoral contests, and nor does it make mention of the U.S. Constitution. And nor. This guy's a professional writer. So anyways, he goes on like that.
And nor.
So this is from 3 months ago, 4 months ago almost. Compare that to the tone of this New York Times piece, which we just read the other New York Times piece. Oh my God, way too zoomed in. Fuck off, I'm not paying for the Times. So this is written by Ruth Graham, who covers religion for the Times, reported from Dallas and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The Claremont Institute has been located in Southern California since its founding in the late 1970s. From its perch in the foothill of the San Gabriel Mountains, beautiful mountain range, it has become a leading intellectual center of the pro-Trump right. Without fanfare, however, some of Claremont's key figures have been leaving California to find ideologically friendlier climes. Ryan P. Williams, the think tank's president, moved to a suburb in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in early April. His friend and Claremont colleague, Michael Anton, a California native who played a major role in 2016 to convince conservative intellectuals to vote for Mr. Trump, moved to the Dallas area 2 years ago. The Institute's vice president for operations and administration has moved there too. Others are following. Mr. Williams opened a small office in another Dallas-Fort Worth suburb in May and said he expects to shrink Claremont's California headquarters. A lot of us share a sense that Christendom is unraveling, said Skylar Cresson, 38, who is friendly with the Claremont leaders and shares many of their concerns. He left Southern California to move to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho in 2020. We need to be engaged. We need to be building. Same image. As Mr. Trump barrels through his third presidential campaign, his supporters buoyed by last week's debate, many of the young activists and thinkers who have risen under his influence see themselves as part of a project that goes far beyond electoral politics. Rather, it is a movement to reclaim the values of Western civilization as they see it. Their ambitions paint a picture of the country they want should Mr. Trump return to the White House, one driven by their version of Christian values with larger families and fewer immigrants. They foresee an aesthetic landscape to match with more classical architecture and a revived conservative art movement and men wearing traditional suits. Their vision includes stronger local leadership and a withered national administrative state, prompting them to celebrate last week when the Supreme Court effectively ended the Chevron deference, which could lead to the weakening of thousands of federal rules on the environment, worker protection, and beyond. Fed up by what they see as an increasingly hostile and disordered secular culture, many are moving to what they view as more welcoming states and regions, battling for American society from conservative fortresses. I want to see what this fortresses is. Fortress building in a negative world from American Reformer. Some see themselves as participants in and advocates for a great sort, a societal reordering in which conservatives and liberals naturally divide into more homogenous communities and areas. And some, including Mr. Cresson, are simultaneously chasing the cheaper costs of living and safer neighborhoods that fuel many ordinary moves. So this is Ryan Williams being presented the National Humanities Medal by President Donald Trump on behalf of the Claremont Institute. The year Mr. Cresson moved to Idaho, he and Mr. Williams were part of an informal conversation at Claremont about the need for new institutions in what some hope will be a rejuvenated American society. The idea was a fraternal community, as one leader put it, that prioritized in-person meetings. The result was the all-male Society for American Civic Renewal, an invitation-only social organization reserved for Christians. The group has about 10 lodges in various states of development so far, with membership ranging between 7 and several dozen people. The group's goals, according to leaders, include identifying local elites across the country and cultivating potential appointees and hires for an aligned future regime, by which they mean a second Trump presidency, but also a future they describe in sweeping and sometimes apocalyptic terms. Some warn of a coming societal breakdown that will require armed, right-minded citizens to restore order. The group's ties to Claremont give it access to influence in a future Trump administration. Mr. Anton served on Mr. Trump's National Security Council, and a Claremont board member, John Eastman, advised Mr. Trump's 2020 election campaign. He faces criminal charges in Arizona and Georgia over schemes to keep Mr. Trump in power after he lost that race. Their rhetoric can sound expansive to the point of opacity. Quoting, "As the great men of the West bequeathed their deeds to us, so must we leave a legacy for our children," the group's website proclaims. The works raised by our hands to this end will last long after we are buried. Their output so far looks more modest. Mr. Crescent's home chapter has hosted an expert in menswear who exhorted members to dress in a classical American style, and a screening and discussion of the 2003 naval adventure film Master and Commander. The men socialize outside of meetings and pass each other business. This is based as hell. This is Skylar Crescent and his family who moved to Coeur d'Alene. How many kids is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least 6 kids.
Nice.
The Circle's critics say they present a cleaned-up version of some of the darkest elements of the right, including a cultural homogeneity to the point of racism and an openness to using violence to achieve political ends. It's this idea of organizing discontent at the local level and building a network that over the next decade or 3 decades or even half century would just keep moving the Republican Party further and further rightward and mobilizing voters in discontented parts of the country, a lot of them men, said Damon Linker, a senior lecturer in political science at the University of Pennsylvania, who has written critically of the crowd. It's a highbrow version of the militia movement. I can't trust anybody named Damon Linker. Like, that name just... Yeah, you're starting with at a deficit. In its first 2 years, leaders said, SACR received significant funding from Charles Haywood, a former business owner in Indiana. Mr. Haywood seems to delight in being an online provocateur. He has called the riot on January 6, 2021, an electoral justice protest and praised the racist 1973 novel, The Camp of the Saints, which I was first tipped off to this article because I saw Haywood today tweet out the link. He said, because it was mentioned in the New York Times, I'm gonna re-up it here. Posting on the platform X last month, he wrote that foreign-born citizens should be deported for offenses including working for left causes. Other leaders attribute the apocalyptic tone of the group's founding documents to Mr. Haywood, who declined to comment. Look at this. This is Americana here. An interior scene in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Many of the young conservatives who have risen under Mr. Trump's influence see themselves as part of a movement to reclaim the values of Western civilization as they see it. A girl sitting here crocheting. This reminds me of growing up. This is like what my grandma's house was like. Members of the society are young, mostly white-collar and mostly white, and often wealthy. Some have left elite institutions to start their own firms and invest in conservative-leaning ventures. Josh Abatoy, the executive director of American Reformer, a Dallas-based journal that serves as an informal in-house publication for the movement, is moving to a small town outside Nashville this week with his wife and 4 children. This is another powerful mutual. Through his new professional network, he is raising funds to develop a corridor of conservative havens between Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky, where he has also purchased hundreds of acres of property. He expects about 50 families to move to the Tennessee town, which he declined to identify, in the next year, including people who work from home for tech companies and other corporations. Where have we heard about this sort of thing? Who's been talking about this? Mr. Abatoy is betting big on the revitalization of the rural South more broadly as white-collar flexibility meets conservative disillusionment with liberal institutions and cities. He sees the Tennessee Project as a playbook for future developments in which neighbors share conservative social values and enjoy, he suggested, a kind of ambient Christian culture. I personally would happily pay high HOA fees to be in a neighborhood where I have to drive by an architecturally significant church every day and I can hear church bells, he said. The Obergefell v. Hodges decision, which legalized same-sex marriage nationally, was a watershed moment for Mr. Abatoy and other conservatives' understanding of how quickly the ground could shift under their feet. It was a decision that signaled to them the onset of an era that the conservative Christian writer Aaron Renn, who has spoken at the Fraternal Society's events, calls negative world, an influential concept that describes a culture in which, quote, being known as a Christian is a social negative, particularly in the elite domains of society. There's Josh Abatoy. Mr. Abatoy was raised in an evangelical culture that encouraged conservative Christians to go out into the world and influence secular institutions, including corporations and universities. But that approach, which defined the last several generations of mainstream evangelicalism, feels increasingly untenable to people in his circle. Mr. Abatoy, who graduated from Harvard Law School, left a job with a major infrastructure company in 2021 and came to work for Nate Fisher, a Dallas venture capitalist and prolific networker, very good follow on Twitter, whose firm invests in conservative projects and opposes, quote, DEI, ESG, and the bureaucratization of American business culture. Mr. Fisher is the president of SACR's Dallas chapter. Andrew Beck, a brand consultant for conservative politicians and entities, including SACR in Claremont, moved with his wife and their now 6 children, along with his parents and 5 of his siblings and their families, from Staten Island to suburbs north of Dallas in 2020. Almost 30 members of the family now live in the same area, just as they did in New York. Something is shifting that's tectonic, said Mr. Beck, who wrote a widely shared essay on re-Christianizing America for Claremont's online magazine, The American Mind. It's not so much about staking out some stronghold where you can live in a cocoon. It's to be a part of a place you can truly consider to be a home. Members must be male, belong to a Trinitarian Christian church, a broad category that includes Catholics and Protestants, but not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Members must also describe themselves as unhyphenated Americans, a reference to Theodore Roosevelt's speech urging the full assimilation of immigrants. The group's interdenominational membership reflects the fact that in the Trump era, conservative Christianity is increasingly becoming a cultural and political identity, with theological differences falling to the wayside and Christianity serving as a kind of generic expression of rebellion against modernity. A significant minority of members are Catholic, including Mr. Cresson. The group also contains Presbyterians, Baptists, and Charismatics. In Mr. Cresson's new hometown in Idaho, the streets are clean and people leave their doors unlocked. His family lives in a house they can afford to own with a white picket fence and room for a trampoline in the yard. In the cozy living room, an upright piano stands in the corner and hymnals and classic novels line the shelves on the wall. Many in our generation are very, very much longing for rootedness, he said, and they were raised in an era where that was really not valued very much. On a weekday morning this spring, he took a brisk morning stroll out his front door and up Tubbs Hill with wildflowers sprinkled along the path and soaring views of the crystalline lake below. At his house afterward, Lauren Cresson, who was pregnant with the couple's 8th child, served peach tea in tastefully mismatched china, quietly switching cups with him so he would have the less feminine one, she said with a smile. Starting over in Idaho, they're really leaning into it. Starting over in Idaho, Mr. Cresson said later, was part of a project so long-term that he does not expect to see its conclusion. Quoting, the old landed aristocracy in England would plant oak trees that would only really mature in 400 years, he said. Who knows what the future holds, but if you don't even start building a family culture, you're doomed to fail.
Putting me to sleep with all the reading today, Matt.
Well, I think we could say that Jason's Trad-Z, the neo-trads, I think that prediction is being borne out more and more. So the comparison between all those things we read, you get the Biden side, the Kamala side, really kind of the anti-Biden side, and then you get this commentary on the SACR and the new founding guys and Claremont, which the overlap here then is obviously Claremont and Heritage and Project 2025, and then you've also got the Gundo connection and the Reindustrialize. All of these people all run in the same circles. They're all talking to each other. They're all aligning in terms of values. And interestingly, many of them are relocating to somewhere in the Texas Triangle and really localized around Dallas and Austin and San Antonio. So I've been making my prediction that by 2100 and maybe even earlier, the American capital is going to be, I think it's probably going to be in Dallas. I think the Dallas-Fort Worth area is, if I could buy futures on this right now, I would be buying futures on Dallas-Fort Worth being the capital of Imperial America by 2100.
And do you see that as like an explicit capital or like, the spiritual capital?
I think explicit capital.
Okay.
Akin to a like Roman Constantinople kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think probably the explicit capital, like absolute shoe-in to me, it would be that it would be the effective capital, the level of industry and economic power and banking and everything operating out of Central Texas is going to be, if not explicit, it's going to be informally the capital. $10 Australian. 2-bit says, F you, I was right. I do think it's funny that we've been so over the top American, and like all the super chats we get are Australian and Canadian. All right, well, that's the 2-hour mark, so I think we got to bounce. I got to go wash my hair, which I'm not looking forward to. Like, this seriously is probably going to take me at least an hour to shampoo it, condition it, brush it out. But it'll be worth it. I'll look different next time you guys see me.
Huh. Okay.
Yep. You got any weekend plans?
No, I mean, my wife and the kids are up north with my in-laws, so I was just gonna... I'm still kind of nursing a hangover today, so we'll see how much I get done today. But certainly tomorrow and Sunday, I plan on just working in the salt mines here, working on episode 1 of the Alembic.
Hell yeah.
Seeing what I can come up with. I did have, there was a comment on yesterday's stream that, if you don't mind, I could answer to right now.
You want me to pull it up?
No, I've got it pulled up here.
Okay.
It was a question to me from Parker Mize. He said, Cooper, how do you stay fit as a truck driver? I'm an industrial electrical contractor, and right now we are slow. I'm trying to get out of the truck and walk. I have 2 kids and 1 on the way. We play on our 5 acres as much as possible, living near Athens. Well, to answer your question, how do I stay fit as a truck driver? I just the reason I'm answering this now is because I didn't feel like typing, because I'm lazy. I don't know, some high intensity training, a la Mike Mentor, once or twice a week. Going for long walks once or twice a week, like, I don't know, 2-3 hours, getting a good 10 miles, and then fasting twice a week in accordance with the church calendar. That's about it. That's all I do, and it, just maintain where I've been at for, I don't know, like the last 2 years.
Twink maxing.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. I don't like having to track what I'm eating and counting calories, and that's such a nightmare. So I just tried to automate all of this as much as possible. And there you go. Work out a couple times, walk a couple times, fast a couple times. You'll be all right. Don't think too hard about it.
And if you start doing that, then as you develop that habit, then you could start building and optimizing on it. But the best thing to do is just start with something really simple and easily attainable, and then make it consistent.
Yeah. And then you can start min-maxing.
Another $10 Canadian from Slosher. He says, you don't need to win. You just need to create a more attractive alternative. These Christian communities look better than downtown San Francisco, no matter what pejoratives they call them. Yeah, it's absolutely I think it's notable, number one, that these things are being published in a publication like that, and that they're obviously they have their standard journalist token appeals to racism and the danger of our democracy and whatever, but they're not hysterical. They're not hysterical and screeching, and the galaxy brains might say, oh, well, they're just they have their people so well trained that they just know they can put it in front of them and the people will respond appropriately. No, the people are not that well trained. If they present something to them in a neutral or favorable light, then the people will see it in a neutral or favorable light. So this is just free advertising. There's a lot of people that are going to see that are going to be, it's going to put these people onto their radar, and it just continues to elevate our profile and create more opportunities for us. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Follow Cooper at Cooper Brooks. And we will be back, or at least I will be back, on Monday morning for another week's worth of the ASTROLABE.